Section 73 of the Divine Comedy by Dante Alighieri, translated by Courtney Langdon. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Paradiso, Canto 6. The Second Heaven, Mercury. The happiness of beneficent activity, ambitious spirits.
When Constantine had turned the eagle back, counter the course of heaven its flight pursued, behind the ancient who Lavinia wedded, 100 years and more, the bird of God on Europe's verge abode, hard by the mountains whence it issued first, and 'neath the shadow of its sacred plumes it governed there the world from hand to hand, and, changing thus, reached mine. Caesar I was, and am Justinian, he who by the will of that first love which now I feel, withdrew the useless and excessive from the laws. And I, before attending to this work, believed that Christ one only nature had, not more, and was with such a faith content. But blessed Agapetus, who was then the highest shepherd, set me by his words upon the pathway of the genuine faith. Him I believed, and what was in his faith I now see clearly, even as thou dost see that contradictions are both false and true. As soon as with the church I moved my feet, God, of his grace, with that great task was pleased to inspire me, and thereto I gave me wholly. War to my Belisarius I entrusted, to whom heaven's right hand was so well conjoined, it seemed a sign that from it I should rest. Here then, to thy first question ends my answer. Its nature, though, constrains me to go on with something more, that thou mayst see how rightly against the holy standard moves both who appropriates and who opposes it. See what great virtue caused it to deserve respect, for from that moment it began, when Pallas died to give it sovereignty. Thou knowest that in Alba it sojourned 300 years and more, till finally 3 against 3 fought for its sake again. Thou knowest too what from the Sabines wrong, through 7 kings, till Lucretia's grief, it did, conquering the neighbouring peoples all around. Thou knowest what it did 'gainst Brennus born, and Pyrrhus, and against the other kings and self-ruled states, by Rome's elect, whereby Torquatus, Quinctius for his unkempt locks surnamed, the Decii and Fabii, acquired the fame which gladly I embalm. It brought the pride of those Arabians low, who traversed, in the wake of Hannibal, those Alpine rocks, whence thou, Po, glidest down. Scipio and Pompey triumphed under it when young, and bitter to that hill it seemed, beneath which thou wast born. Then, near the time when willed it was by heaven that all the world should be reduced to its own peaceful state, Caesar assumes it at the hest of Rome. And that which from the Var unto the Rhine it did, the Saône, Isère, and Seine perceived, and every valley whence the Rhone is filled. What next it did, when, issuing from Ravenna, it leaped the Rubicon, was such a flight that neither tongue nor pen could follow it. Towards Spain it wheeled its host around, then turned Durazzo ward, and smote Pharsalia so that to the torrid Nile the pain was felt. And Tandros and the Simois, whence it started, it saw again, and there where Hector lies. Then, ill for Ptolemy, it roused itself. Thence with the speed of lightning it swooped down on Juba. Toward your west it next turned back, for there it heard Pompeian trumpets blow, for what it did with its next standard-bearer, Brutus, and Cassius with him, barks in hell. Modena, and Perugia too it grieved. Sad Cleopatra, who, before it fleeing, took from the asp a dark and sudden death, is weeping still for what with him it did. With him it reached the distant Red Sea's shore, with him it brought the world to such a state of peace that Janus had his temple closed. But what the sign which causes me to speak had done before and after was to do, throughout the mortal world which owns its sway, comes to seem small and dark, if in the hand of its third Caesar it be looked upon with clearly seeing eyes and spirit pure, because the living justice which inspires me granted that sign, when in the latter's hand, the glory of carrying out its wrath's revenge. Now wonder here at what I further tell thee. When this was done, with Titus it ran on to avenge the avenging of the ancient sin. And later, when the tooth of Lombardy the Holy Church had bitten, Charles the Great came to her help by conquering 'neath its wings. Thou now canst judge of those I charged above, and of their sins, which all your woes produced. Against the public standard one sets up the yellow fleur-de-lis, while yet another appropriates it to a party's use. Hence hard it is to see which sinneth most. Let then the Ghibellines their tricks perform under some other sign, for this one he e'er follows ill, who it from justice parts. Nor let this new Charles smite it with his Guelphs, but let him rather fear the taloned claws which from a greater lion once stripped off his hide. Often have sons ere now bewailed their father's guilt. Hence let none think that God will for his lilies change his coat of arms. This little star of ours adorns itself with those good spirits who have active been, that fame and honour might live after them, and when, thus deviating, one's desires tend thitherward, the rays of true love needs must upward mount with less intensity. But in the balancing of our rewards with our deserts, part of our joy consists, because we see them as nor more nor less. Hereby the living justice sweetens so our love in us, that it can never more be turned aside to any kind of wrong. Voices that differ make on earth sweet music. So in this life of ours its different grades produce sweet harmony among these spheres. And in the present pearl there shines the light of Romeo, he whose beautiful and great performance was ungratefully repaid. And yet the Provençals who 'gainst him worked laughed not. He therefore takes an evil path, who to his harm another's good deeds turns. 4 daughters, and each one of them a queen, had Raymond Berenger, and, though low-born and alien, Romeo 'twas did this for him. Then slandering words led Raymond to demand a reckoning of this upright man, who 5 and 7 had rendered him for every 10. Thereat, though poor and old, he went his way. And if the world but knew the heart he had, while crust by crust he begged his livelihood, much as it praises, it would praise him more.
End of Paradiso Canto 6.